Okay. All right. Okay. This is gonna be a demonstration for doing final details, final things to finish up on your uh, um, on your sustained investigation. Okay. So at this point now, since we're focusing on value for our SI number one, at this point now, you should have established like where your main light sources, your values, your lights and darks. So at this point now, it's just we're basically finishing up the piece. So couple of different approaches you can go about with finishing your work of art. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do it. Obviously, one way is you can go back into your pencil layer. So I can actually get rid of this reference here. I don't really need it. So, oops. So I'm gonna go back into my layers here. I'm gonna go back to my drawing that I did here. Okay, so you want to just like clean up just the drawing part itself. So I'm gonna go back with my Procreate brush and use like the same brush for my pencil here. So you can just kind of go back and forth and just kind of clean up the drawing overall. Okay, so you have some really nice line art drawings that you guys did. You can just kind of go over your drawing again and just clean it up more. So this is really one option you can do with like the your final drawing. So obviously this will take more time because you're getting closer up on the drawing, and you're just taking more time to just clean up the lines that you guys made or omit some lines you don't want to have in the drawing. So you just gotta go back and just rework on the drawing a little bit more. So this is one option you can go about with it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Another option you could do too is if you go this option though, just kind of pick and choose areas that you can work on, clean up the drawing more. So that's one option, is just cleaning up the the sketch of the drawing you did. You kind of roughed out lines quickly. We can kind of clean it up more. So I'm going more of like a sketching and drawing look. So I'm not really making like perfectly straight lines, but I'm kind of what's the word called, embellishing the traditional art medium. Okay, you can go back and clean up the drawing more. The other option you can do too is if you want to go back on your layer that you did your values on. So this is like the layer where I incorporated my values. You can just kind of go over like that specific layer and just go into more detail with like your rendering of the values. So I really like how the light falls on like this person's clothes. So I could even go into more detail with like the arms itself. Somewhere you can always eye drop the colors. Go back to using the acrylic brush over here. And then I'm gonna go over what I need to paint over here. So it should be this layer right here. So okay. So I'm gonna go over, paint these areas, clean it up more. Use the darker value for like the clothes. So basically just like rendering these details a little bit further. So this is more of a darker value over here. And it kind of just goes on this darker value over here. And then you got some like darks on the edges here. So spend a little bit more time doing these darker values here. Okay, so I can go into more detail like this. Or another option you could do too, and this is like my favorite option, this is the one that I like doing, is, just basically kind of painting over like the whole painting. So this is just making a whole new layer on top of your drawing. And, just go into the painting part itself. So I have like my lines here, my values. There's gonna be a certain point where like you don't really need to use like the line work anymore, so you can even just paint over the lines that you guys drew. And this is like what they call digital painting in Procreate. So a lot of professional artists do their work like this. So basically I'm just painting over my line work. So if you're thinking about like the same thing as like traditional painting, everything we've been doing so far has been like your underpaint. So this is like literally me just, painting over the drawings that I've done already. So, you can work it like as if it were like a digital painting. That's one option. So, eventually if I paint over these lines though, I will lose all of my line work that I've had. And I'm just looking at the lights and darks values drawn from observation. So this is kind of why I had you guys do so much, or do like a really detailed shot of your references, because all of this little details, these highlights, you won't be able to figure out from your imagination. Like you really need like to have a nice reference to be able to kind of pull these things, to make a, kind of like a believable sleeve. In this case, I'm drawing here. Okay, so, you can work on more of the details. Again, I want to use this reference because the one I had before wasn't like good enough, I feel. But I can just kind of paint over everything that I've done. So, don't worry if you don't like it, like I mess up on it, you can always erase it. So that's not the end of the world if you mess up on it. But, I feel like to grow as an artist though, you have to, there's a little bit of like, you have to take some risks or take some chances with your art. Because, if you kind of do what we call like the same thing over and over again, you're never going to grow as an artist. So I'm just eyedropping these values, just kind of laying it in more. Just following my reference here. So, you'll never grow as an artist unless if you take chances or risks. And, I feel like that's kind of the big point of your AP portfolio is, you really want to grow as an artist. It's okay if you want to do like some of the same things, but do try out some new things if you're not sure, you don't know what to expect. But you won't know until like you get there. So I'm kind of zooming in, zooming out. So I'm just trying to see how it looks when I add more of these values. So it's like really cool, like lighting happening under the eye sockets, which I didn't really capture from before. But you can see how like my drawing is like kind of disappearing in a way. And it's really just becoming more about the values that you create. So don't feel bad, or don't be afraid to draw over your line work, because you might end up with something better. You just never know until you actually do it. So so you can kind of see like the before and after. I'm getting more like the rendering done on the values. And I wouldn't be able to have it show up really well. The only reason it's just showing up real well is because I'm just painting over my drawing at this point. Just treating it as if it were me painting on top of the work. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. I could just work on this more. Sometimes it helps to kind of jump around like different parts of your your drawing. Zoom in, zoom out. Go into different areas of the drawing. Change your brush sizes. The big brush is like really good to like just kind of lay out values. I can even jump into like the close right here too. So a lot of what art is though is just kind of fine tuning and refining the drawings as you go along. Okay, so this is like kind of what I was talking about before, like going from the, because right now like I'm about 70% done right now. So even that little 10% though, it's like I still have to do a lot of work, but it's like it's really hard to get like 100% done if you really take your time and just making sure your artwork looks good. Okay, if you had me in art before though, it's like you guys could always work on your pieces a little bit more. I didn't really push you too hard. I feel like I didn't really push people too hard on their work, but since you guys are getting scored and there's like a whole AP test to it, definitely gonna push you guys a little bit harder with your artwork and your pieces. Okay, right. You can see how it's kind of coming together a little bit more. The more I work on it, I don't really do too much, but you can see like a difference though with like the before and after. So it's kind of going like back and forth with it. Now I worked on mine a little bit more, so like I kind of did like in separate layers. So this is like the first layer of values that I did. So basically just kind of rendered everything a little bit more. Worked on more of the details to the cone or the coins. And I was trying to create like brush directions of like where the light was coming from, especially down here. I'm trying to let money be illuminated a little bit more. So, or kind of like the light behind it. So then it's like kind of create a little bit more movement with like the pieces in there. So I did this first. Just laid out more values, focus a little more on the coins. Added a little cast shadows on the paper itself. Worked on the background a little bit more. This was going into more details with the some of the highlights on the back of the shirts. So even like right here, I would say like I'm about 80% done at this point, but I can still work on this more. If I wanted to go into more of the details, I can. Okay, but this is like kind of like I mentioned before though, like going from 80 to 100, it's a lot more work because it's still pretty rough though. But if I were to zoom out though, this looks finished in my eyes. But at this point now, feedback from other people that to move on even further with my piece. Okay, so just a few things to think about when you're moving on to details.